So I have to admit that when I first got this from WeBoost, I thought that the name Destination RV was kind of an odd name for a cell phone booster. It sounds more like a TV show, like Destination RV. I guess it makes sense that since this is a booster that you can only use when you're parked, you're stationary. It's essentially a home-based system that's been adapted for use in a large RV. And compared to the Drive Reach, which you can use while you're driving or parked, this one you can only use at your destination. So you can't use it while you're driving to your destination. But it comes with some benefits, being a home-based cell phone booster that the Drive Reach doesn't have. Let's take a closer look at this. We're gonna set it up, look at some numbers, see if it's better than the Drive Reach, or maybe it's just different. We'll find out. Before we get started, I just want to let you know that I put together a resource. It's just an article on the website that's kind of a brain dump about, I think, everything you need to know before you go out and buy a cell phone booster for your RV. So, take a look at that if this is all new to you and you have a ton of questions. I think you're going to get those questions answered in that article. And it also includes some alternatives to a cell phone booster that you may not have thought of, that you may not even need to buy a cell phone booster for your RV. So go check that out. And hope that helps. But let's take a look at this this Destination RV booster. Like I said, it's a home-based booster that's from WeBoost home multi-room setup. Now this is just the amplifier part. It says home multi-room here, so that's how you know. It's kind of their mid-range booster package. Now they've put together a couple of different antennas so that you can use it in an RV. And as a home system, there are three main benefits that I see that are improvements over what you get with the Drive Reach. So I want to talk about those. The first one is the fact that as a home-based system, you can have a boosted gain up to 65 dB. So that's an increase over the 50 dB limit of the Drive Reach. I keep pointing up here, by the way, because that's where my Drive Reach is installed. So we have a higher gain with this booster, and also with that comes this internal antenna that is more of a panel mount antenna that has a higher range as well. So you can cover more area inside a larger camper or a motorhome. So we mount this in a nice conveniently located spot, and you don't have to be right next to it to benefit from this boost. So another improvement that we'll take a look at a little later. And the final thing is that the external antenna is completely different. We have a directional antenna now as opposed to an omnidirectional antenna that you get with the Drive Reach. But the directional antenna, it takes a little bit more setup, but once you can dial it in to a particular cell tower, then you can really get the best possible signal by targeting that tower directly. To be able to position it, it comes with this giant pole that will extend up to 25 feet, and that's why the box that it comes with is so huge, because it has this giant pole in it. As always, WeBoost packages everything really, really well, and yeah, it's just a big box, and it's got this pole in it. So we'll get that pole set up first, and then we'll talk about some of the other benefits once we get that set up. At the top of this extension pole is where we're going to mount the external antenna, and it's kind of in the shape of a wedge. In fact, this latest version of it is it looks a little bit more streamlined and aerodynamic than the previous one. So that's definitely a difference over the antenna that came with the Connect RV 65 kit. It comes with a pole mount bracket, so with a couple of screws, you mount this bracket to the antenna, and then you can then clamp that bracket onto the top of the pole. It's pretty easy to set up, just a couple of screws and an Allen wrench. Now, where you position or mount that extension pole is kind of critical. You want it to be far enough away from where you're going to mount the internal antenna. They do include like a foot that goes on the bottom of the pole that you can anchor to the ground, as well as some mounting brackets that the pole mounting hardware will actually just slide into, and they have some VHB tape or some really good adhesive tape on the back. Now, I decided to mount it next to my ladder on the back of the RV because it was close enough to the ladder where I could still attach it, with a couple of Velcro straps to the ladder to anchor it there, and it just seemed like a good location. I could even leave it there permanently, because once I collapsed that entire pole down to its lowest point, then it was kind of level with the top of the RV. When I mounted the brackets next to the ladder, I found it easier just to stick them on the pole itself and then use the pole with the brackets attached to position it in the location that I needed it to be. And after I cleaned the surface really well, then I just removed the adhesive backing and stuck it on while it was attached to the pole. So that way, when it was done, it was in the exact position that I wanted it to be. Now, they give you plenty of RG6 cable to use and connect the antenna to the rest of the system. So I used one of the big long pieces and just attached it using I think it's the standard cable TV kind of F-type connector, and just screwed that on and then wrapped the cable around the pole as I extended it up. Now, I didn't see any Velcro straps or anything like that in the packaging, so I happen to have some on hand, so I use those just in a couple places to just put some Velcro and keep the cable secure on the pole. You just kind of put it all the way up, and it's pretty high. You can certainly see how it would help get over some of those obstacles that you might encounter if you're parked in the woods, or you're blocked by mountains or hills or other RVs, and you want to just get way above that and target a specific cell tower. For this setup, I just ended up using the existing cable that was provided with the kit and just running it along the roof of the RV all the way to the front, and then down next to my awning, and ultimately through the window here where I'm sitting, and that's where I'm going to use the booster here to try to set it up and do a test. One of the things that I'm glad that they included in this kit is one of those flat cable connectors, and it's flat because it allows you to slip it into the opening or the seal of a slide out or a door and or a window, and it still maintains a good connection through that opening and doesn't leave too much of a gap. If you decide that you want a more permanent installation and you don't want to run this cable across the roof each time, you're going to have to figure out the best way to get the cable through the roof and down into your RV and route it to the point where your booster is going to be located. But it's going to be complicated. Any kind of wiring and inside your RV is always a little complicated. You're really going to get to know the inside of your walls pretty well if you go that route. Making the connections on the booster unit itself is pretty straightforward. You have a cable input called outside antenna. That's where you connect the outside antenna. And one for the inside antenna. That's where you connect the inside antenna. Now just position the internal antenna, the inside antenna, in a central location somewhere near where you're going to be sitting and using your devices. To power the unit, they included a DC direct wire kit, so if you wanted to wire it directly to a 12-volt source, it'll step it down to, I think, 5 volts is what this actually uses to run. But that's a nice thing to have if you want to wire it directly into one of your 12-volt circuits. For me, I went ahead and just used the AC adapter that came with it, and we fired it right up. Before you power up your booster, I recommend that you get a baseline first to see really where you're at, what kind of signal you're getting, what kind of data download and upload speeds you're getting before you turn on your booster, and then you can compare the results to see which one is better, or just to know how much of a boost you're getting. You should see a solid green light here on the booster, which tells you that everything's good to go. If you see a red light or a blinking light of any sort, that means it's there's some sort of problem, and you need to check your positioning on your antennas, make sure they're not too close, and make sure they're not conflicting with each other. Because this is a directional antenna, you're going to have to pick a direction. So you're going to have to figure out where the cell tower is that you want to use for your signal. And there's a couple ways to do that, providing that you have some sort of signal. You may actually get a boost right off the bat, depending upon where your antenna is set up. But I use an app called Network Cell Info Lite, and it's an Android app, but there are other ones like Open Signal that are available on iOS. And there's also a website, I believe it's called cellmapper.net, something like that. I'll put a link to it if that's not the right name. But they have map interfaces on the app, so you can kind of see, like right now, if you can see this line here, this is my location, this is the location of the tower where that I'm currently hitting. So, using your an app like this, you can kind of get a general idea of the direction of the tower that you want to target, and then rotate the antenna so it's pointing in that general direction. And then you should see the signal level. If I go back to the main gauge here, this is my decibel level. This is the amount of signal strength that I have right now. You'll see that change as you rotate the antenna, and you want to just kind of pick the optimal position that gives you the best result. There may be situations where you fire up your booster and your booster says, oh, hey, you look at the map on these apps and you have maybe 2, 3 different cell towers that you could possibly connect to. And you have the choice with a directional antenna to say, hey, I want to target that cell tower because it's the best one. What I've seen with the omnidirectional antenna is that if the booster can reach multiple cell towers, that it tends to jump from one to the other. So I'll see the signal gain jump significantly, like 10 dB, from one to the other, and I'm like, what's going on? It's because it's switching cell towers, and it's just kind of constantly maybe picking up one, thinking it's the better one, but maybe the data rate or something about that cell tower is just not as good as the other. So, once you're in an area and you can really figure out which cell tower is the best for you, or you're, familiar with your spot, maybe it's your seasonal home base and you know that there's a cell tower that you want to hit, you can target it directly with this directional antenna and just kind of rotate it to pinpoint that location. You should see some big improvements in the coverage area inside the RV using this antenna with this Destination RV package. You should be able to receive that signal, throughout the RV, at least in the main living area, depending upon the layout of your rig. I've definitely seen improvements as I've been playing around with this. From really close to the antenna here, all the way back across the room. I'm still getting a boost in my phone that I've measured, from one end of the room to the other. Sure, it degrades some as you move, but nothing like with the tabletop antenna. that you see with the Drive Reach and other previous systems. Because normally I'll keep my phone or whatever my hotspot device is, I'll keep it right here next to the antenna. It has to be within a foot or so to get the best result. With this system, I could be sitting across the room and still get a pretty good boost out of it. So is the Destination RV booster better than the Drive Reach RV? Well, I don't really think it's better, it's just different. So let's talk about some of the differences. And obviously, with this system, it's for stationary use only, so you can't be using it while driving. It does give you more customization in terms of being able to target specific cell towers, so that's a bonus. Plus the pole setup is really handy, especially if you're in an area that you need to get up over some sort of obstacle, and that additional height's gonna do that for you and give you a better line to the cell tower. Now the 65 dB boost is a plus. It's more than the Drive Reach, but the Drive Reach also still has a higher uplink power level. And that was one of the benefits of the Reach, is that it has a higher uplink power level. What I found is that with the Drive Reach, that my data upload speeds are still higher when I do a comparison between the upload data rate on the Drive Reach RV versus this one. And it's because of that higher uplink power that the Drive Reach has. But that's only if you're going to be uploading large amounts of data, like if I'm uploading videos and things like that, that comes into play. It's not a huge difference, but it is a difference with the Drive Reach. So, I got 65 dB gain here, 50 dB on the Drive Reach. Now, the other big benefit, I think, of this system is the inside coverage area, that you're able to cover a larger area. But that means you also have to have this system that you can only use while you're stationary. So you're just gonna have to weigh out those benefits and figure out, what your situation looks like. I think the Drive Reach is a more universal setup, and that's a really good setup for just general RV use if you think you need a booster, if that's really going to benefit you. If you're in a fixed location and you're going to be there for a while and you don't mind some setup, I think this Destination RV is the right package. It costs more money. Keep that in mind as well. Now, weighing all that out, you're going to have to figure out what's the best option for you. But I like them both, and I think they both serve two different needs. Now, if you want to, save a few bucks on either the Drive Reach or the Destination RV, check the description. I've got a way you can save a few bucks, off of that price. So that's always a good deal that's available. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on this booster and what your experiences are, and drop any questions below also in the comments section. And be sure to check the links. I'll put a link to the Drive Reach RV review that I did back in the fall of 2020. So be sure to check that out, and hope you enjoyed the video and it helped you make a decision as to what you need for your RV. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one.